don't know what menopause has done for me. I actually got skinnier and wanted to fuck everything. It's so bizarre. When I hand the hose, I touch a camel toe and she gonna blow me like a...
Salutations, family. It's your player partner, Storm Hall, and I'd like to welcome you all back to Inside the Eye of the Storm. While scouring the internet recently, I came across a riveting podcast interview starring a Miss Cree Summer. Miss Cree Summer rose to prominence with her role in the wildly popular sitcom back in the day, and it was a spinoff of The Cosby Show, A Different World. A Different World was about a group of young African Americans that attended a HBCU, and it was wildly popular because it showed a dynamic in the black community that was missing from media and pop culture at the time. And many of the people my age really gravitated to the show. And Miss Cree played a role in that show, and it was a very funny role in that show because she was casted as the other light-skinned girl. Of course, there was Miss Whitley Gilbert on the show, and she was played by Miss Jasmine Guy, another actress who's wildly popular. But I mean, Miss Jasmine Guy was a megastar on the show. And to a lot of gentlemen at the time, I'm going to just say straight up, she was the light-skinned girl a lot of gentlemen want to be with. In the black community, colorism is real popular. And not only in the black community, in the system of white supremacy in general, of course, we have a race or a color paradigm that exists. We puts light skin at the top of the totem pole. And Miss Whitley Gilbert basically encapsulated and basically was the prototype of what all African American men should have strived to actually be with, and that put Miss Cree Summers in a very strange dichotomy on the show because she was cast as the other light-skinned girl, which she was a little quirky. She was racially ambiguous, almost being like she was biracial, or you knew she was black, but you didn't know exactly what she was, and you couldn't put your finger on her. And her style was very eclectic and very off the wall. So she brought a different paradigm to the show and a different nuance to the show that was unknown to a lot of kids, especially kids like myself who grew up in an urban environment. But she came into the cast, and she made her mark on pop culture, being a part of the Different World show. And then she's gone on to become a wildly popular voice actor. She's voiced many characters in the past, folks. But here recently, she's joined this young lady on this podcast to speak about womanhood, especially as women advance in age. Miss Cree Summers now is in her 50s, and she's made some real valid points. And she spoke on some issues that really are missing right now in the social media landscape with all of these podcasts. A lot of these podcasts, they're very cute. They got a lot of these youngins out here in their 20s and their early 30s, and they're speaking on these real relationship matters. And a lot of these people haven't even experienced life or the different paradigm and relationship dynamics they're just speaking on. They're just speaking from hearsay. But this is a woman. She's a mature woman. She's been through Hollywood. She's an attractive woman. She's well-to-do. I'm assuming she's garnered a large amount of resources and a large income from both her acting and her voice acting career. But I just want to use some of the conversation and a few snippets from this podcast to just dive in and use it as a backdrop to give social commentary from a masculine perspective. Let's jump in and let's break down some of it, family.
Over them and always crying. And so I really didn't want to mess with boys for years growing up. I liked the feeling of being their friends, and I liked the respect of being their friends, and I didn't want to cry all the time. And so I was a very late bloomer. My first real boyfriend was Kadeem on A Different World, so I was 19 years old. And I have always also taken my time. I've never been a one-night stand kind of girl, not because I don't want to. It's just not how I'm built.
And I just want to pause it to interject right here, family. And what Miss Cree Summers is expressing, and she's expressing it in a way that's a roundabout way, but it's very prevalent to gentlemen, especially of my age group. When you're dealing with the black community and you understand black community and sexuality in the black community, in the past, there was not a sexual openness or such a sexual freedom that you see now amongst both men and women in the black community. Back when I was growing up in my early teens, and basically when I was in adolescence and I was reaching my sexual maturation process, where I started to be interested in girls and sex in itself, a lot of the young ladies still were demure. A lot of the young ladies were still taught self-respect. And you didn't just go around and just automatically assume at 13, 14, 15, or 16 years old that you were going to have sex with these young ladies. You understood that you had to treat young ladies with a certain level of respect. The sexual sex was not overt. It was not in your face. The young women were not over-sexualized. The women were not very promiscuous. To say the least, well, not at least not openly. And young women who were openly promiscuous, or who did express their sexuality very openly, it was frowned upon. We looked at them, we called them hoes. They got a bad name for themselves. A lot of my OGs told me. They told me that a young lady cannot do the same thing that a young man does and not gain a bad reputation or a name for herself. And that's what Miss Cree is expressing right here in this part of the interview, without basically going into that or delving into that. But that's what you can glean from this portion of the conversation. And you fast forward to nowadays, and the young ladies being overly sexualized, they're very promiscuous, and they're able to basically wear their sexuality on their sleeve. And it's very tragic, because a lot of these young women don't see why men see them as sexual objects, why it's hard for them to engage in amorous relationships where men respect them outside of their body. And it's because that we've had this sexual liberation process who've allowed women to go out here and to be promiscuous, who've allowed women to dress sexually provocative, and it's told women that they should be able to do so without being judged or without having any ramifications or having to face the ramifications of their actions. And that's never the case. When you understand the paradigm and the relationship dynamic between men and women, a woman that's demure and understands being reserved and commanding respect from men, she's always going to gather more from a relationship with a man and be in a more advantageous and beneficial situation with her interactions with men. She's going to command respect, and that's just is what it is. But let's jump back in, family, and I'm going to break this down even more.
There's a freedom now that I never had not even in my 40s. And I think I don't care anymore. This is such a dangerous town sometimes, with the beauty ideals and not allowed to be old. And I spent a lot of my time being hemmed up in vanity. And now that I really can't be, I'm the second half of my life. And now I don't care so much about what it looks like.
What are you talking about? You're still...
And I would like to stop it to interject once again to make another point. And I totally agree with Miss Cree Summers, and she's speaking specifically to Los Angeles and being in the limelight as far as the entertainment community and the entertainment industry. But I get this from society in general. Right now, people aren't comfortable with growing older, both men and women, and that was highlighted here recently this past week with the releasing of the pictures or the artistic sketches or renderings of Puff Daddy in the courtroom. Some people went in and they took the renderings and they made AI composites of Diddy with gray hair. He has a gray hair and a gray beard. And people are amazed, or they're fascinated that Puff Daddy, being in his mid to late 50s, is gray. That's not unheard of. And you have the advent of coloring like Beijing and Just for Men, well, where people can cover up and they can try to take on these false facades. You have lace front wigs. You don't see people in their natural light anymore. I choose to wear gray beard. I'm only 45 years old. A lot of people think I'm a lot older than 45 years old because they're so used to people putting on this fake exterior or facade of youth and try to impress society as a whole, that they don't even know what real mature people look like anymore. Gray hair is natural. It's natural. It's natural to gray. It's natural to grow older, and to grow older with grace. And just be you. It's not that you're not beautiful, or it's not that you're not handsome anymore. It's just that you move into a different phase of your life, and you're not this prepubescent young whippersnapper that's out here taking the world by storm. I was a wildly attractive young man in my youth, and I was beautiful. I thought I was beautiful, and I attracted women by the droves. But I understand now that I'm a more mature gentleman. I've grown into my masculinity, and I understand that it's not that time in my life anymore. It's time for me to, I've been through a maturation process. I'm not the man I was in my 20s. Am I as handsome as I used to be? Probably not. Am I more sophisticated, more intelligent, more emotionally intelligent than I was in my 20s? Of course I am. I'm hoping that through the maturation process of going from my 20s to my 40s, that I've grown immensely in other department, which makes up for the time, the beauty or whatever the time is taken away from me in my maturation process. I make up in different facilities and different faculties to make me more attractive to the opposite sex. With that being said, I'm also a married man. So me being consumed with vanity or appearing younger to society, that's the least of my worries. I'm worried about being a better man in general. I'm worried about being more stoic, instilling more knowledge into the community, and trying to just be an overall better man. And the same thing with women. She's 100% right. You see a lot of women online, and they're talking about 40 wear, 50 wear. I don't look 50. It doesn't matter if you look your age or not. You are your age. You can look 23. If you're 50, you're still 50 years old. You're in the second part of your life. In the second part of your life, you should be trying to cultivate relationships and utilize your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to better impact society, not running around trying to be the baddest, be on social media, or running around getting BBLs and plastic surgery and facelifts and trying to be the best, try to outdo these young women who you find yourself in constant conflict or constant competition with over the attention of young men. It's just not going to happen. But let's jump back into this and let's break it down some more, family.
Something about loving the way it looks and loving the way it feels now at last. That's helped my sexuality.
Oh, can you paint me a picture of what that looks like?
Oh my goodness.
Is there a moment that you can take me into?
Well, I think I'm learning that I didn't know that I like things so slow. I think I didn't know that eye contact was the most important thing to me. I never knew that I wanted to look at someone all the time or be looked at, be seen so deeply. That really turns me on. I have to hit my mic. That turns me on. And also, I like to be choked a little bit. Hurt.
And as you can see, Miss Cree Summer delves into a little bit of her sexuality, and it's crazy because these women feel the need to express so much of the inner workings of their sexual relationships in these podcasts now, but it's entertainment, so let them do what they do. But she makes a valid point with saying that she never understood the need for her to be seen so much. And this is a need that a lot of women neglect, but it's what drives social media, really. Men are visual creatures. Men like to observe women. They're turned on by women. And it's the driving force for men a lot of times, especially the libido of a man. A man is enthralled and he's turned on visually. on the opposite spectrum of that, women like to be observed. Women have a natural inclination to be observed, to be validated as being beautiful by men. No matter what women say, you have a lot of women right now, they choose to dress provocatively right now in society, and they're saying that men shouldn't over-sexualize them and they shouldn't be seen as sexual objects. But the reason these women dress like this, no matter what they say, is because they want the attention and the validation of the men. And this is an exchange of masculine and feminine energy. The man being turned on visually, and the woman being turned on by being observed and being recognized as being beautiful and being validated as beautiful. This is a natural exchange of masculine and feminine energy, and that's what Miss Cree Summers is expressing right here. And then she also goes to say she likes to be choked a little bit. That's just the freakazoid coming out of her. She a little freak. And there's nothing wrong with being a little freak in your older age. As you become more mature and you understand and you mature in your sexuality, you understand you got a little freakazoid in you. You understand your kinks. Everybody has kinks. Everybody has what they like and what they don't like in the bedroom. And when you keep that in the bedroom and you don't air it to society, and it's not a public spectacle, it's 100% acceptable, family. You can like whatever you like inside your own bedroom, as long as you have the discernment and you understand that it belongs in your bedroom and not on display for the whole world. Then it's not up for judgment of others. But let's jump back into this, family, and let's break it down even further.
In this town, this is not a place where I have the opportunity. I don't get asked out on a lot of dates. I never get asked out on dates. And I don't know if it's being 55 in Los Angeles or if it's just a strange town, you know.
What does that feel like?
And Miss Cree Summers right there, in her moment of vulnerability, she's real candid with what she's saying. She's saying that, you know, as she's grown older, she's grown more sexually liberated. And I think that's the time where you should grow more sexually liberated, because you become more stable in your life as a whole. When you're surrounded by stability in your life as a whole, as far as being able to garner resources and be able to take care of yourself, that's when you should flourish sexually, because you can handle the ramifications and you can also be responsible for what comes from your sexual liberation. I think a lot of times in the community, sexual liberation is taken for granted, and promiscuity is so prevalent that you have young kids who are not able to take full accountability for their actions, making very reckless decisions sexually. But also what Miss Cree goes on to say is that as she as a woman has grown in her sexuality throughout her maturation process, she's become more and more invisible to for a lack of a better term. But it's not that she's grown more and more invisible. It's just that all of us are going to have to live with the fact that we are not seen as these sexual viable creatures or sexually virile creatures as we grow up there in age. Me being a 45-year-old man, I don't garner the same attention that I used to garner from women when I used to go out. And I don't take that as a slight at all, and I actually find it more intriguing and more fascinating, and it just gives me more of an opportunity to perfect my game and go deeper into the game that I've learned and I've mastered throughout the years. When you look at it, family, back when I was a young man, I could go out into public and I would just garner compliments. I would go to nightclubs and women would just approach me. I would never have to cold approach women. Women would engage me in conversation. They would talk to me and they would just come on to me. And here is an older masculine gentleman of discerning taste and sophistication. I don't have women approaching me like that anymore. And I don't expect women to approach me like that anymore, because I'm on a different level. When women see me now, they understand that's a sophisticated, discerning gentleman, and I gotta come correct or I can't come at all at that gentleman. And that's what I wholeheartedly expect. Like I say time and time again, family, Rolls Royce doesn't have to advertise. People know if they can afford Rolls Royces or not. People who can't afford Rolls Royces don't walk up into the Rolls Royce dealership and ask for a test drive. It's the same thing with growing older and maturing in your sexuality. People who aren't qualified or don't have the qualifications to approach you or to be in your presence, they're not going to approach you, and they're going to try to play it off as you being older. They're going to try to use that as an excuse, but it's no excuse. They know that you're out of their league. They know you're more mature. You're not for the games. You're not for the playing. 9 times out of 10, you have mastered the game, and you could teach them a thing or two, both relationship wise and sexually. So you don't even have to worry about weeding your way through all of the nonsense and the BS unless you choose to engage with younger individuals who don't understand the relationship paradigm that you bring to them, and that you're dealing from a superior position because you're more wise and understanding of relationship dynamics. But that's going to be all for me on this episode of Inside the Eye of the Storm family. Was a little more long-winded than I usually am in these videos, but I wanted to break it down, some of the nuances in this conversation with Miss Cree Summers, because she was very candid and she provided the inside look of a woman in her 50s and what you can expect from a woman in her 50s that's reached this point in the maturation process, and what she experiences in amorous relationships with the opposite sex, or dealing with men in society, and what she expects in relationships with the opposite sex. If you like this family and this breakdown from me family, please hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to join me for every episode of Inside the Eye of the Storm. Come on, family. Y'all got to hit that subscribe button. What the hell is wrong with y'all? Do y'all got commitment issues or something? Let me know, family. Hit that like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to join me for every episode of Inside the Eye of the Storm, family. I greatly appreciate it. And I want to do more breakdowns like this so I can provide more knowledge, wisdom, and understanding from a masculine perspective, and hopefully we can grow together, family. Thank y'all very much for joining me. I'm gonna go ahead and clock out right here, family. Thank y'all again. Peace.